Hello there, lovely people. It is I, Magnanix, returning to you once more with another video of the archived footage of the recent PB-chan modeling streams. Yes, plural. Within these videos playing in the background, you will see the construction, from scratch, of both the Asuna and Kirito outfits from Sword Art Online. As is customary with these videos, I would like to thank you for your continued support, both for viewing this video and other videos on my channel, for subscribing on my Twitch channel if you do, and a big thanks to my patrons. So thank you, 00039, Arcane, Curious Cryptogenic, Doodle Labelle, Evan Fang, Flying Ostrich, Flying Bear, Homebrewed Dwarf, Jinrai, Krez Kauka, Kai Kotsu, Little Bagel, Lolly Goddess, Mashido Sora, Obi-Wananome, Soul Flare, Wakuzo, and last but most definitely not least, your pal Jinx. The model this time was chosen by two individuals within this list, your pal Jinx and Jinrai. It is a matching pair, so both were done within the span of this week, rather than doing one weekend and the other the weekend after. As there is not a game that goes with these, well, I mean there are many games, but not one I have played myself, that go with these two outfits, as it's based off a story, or anime rather, I might go into detail of the synopsis of that very series, the first season of Sword Art Online. But before that, let me go into detail on the genre that this series is based within. The genre of this light novel is known as LitRPG, literary RPG. This term denotes any form of sci-fi or fantasy in written format that involves RPG-like mechanics, things such as character sheets, leveling up, stats, items, farming, grinding, questing, etc. You get the picture. Specifically, these stories tend to take place within the world of a game, instead of just some epic fantasy land or alternative universe. I am a massive fan of this genre, and have read well over hundreds of books within the category. Interestingly enough, this genre has only just recently blown up in popularity within the Western world. Prior to this explosive growth of Western releases, the only way to obtain LitRPG stories was to either read web novels, translated light novels, or learn Russian, Korean, Japanese, or Chinese and read the novels in their native language, on sites like Naver or other such. I opted for the translated issues of these books when I started, and I do not regret the amount of time I have spent immersed in these imaginary and expansive worlds. The genre itself is very similar to other styles of writing, with just a few minor alterations. The majority of novels found within LitRPG involve a character transferring to another world, whether by device, accident, or some form of reincarnation. These three methods are generally the starting point of many tales. Some well-begotten average person finds themselves within a world without limit, working to a framework not dissimilar to the video games of their youth. This, however, is not always the case. Sometimes the story revolves around a world where some outside influence or other infects the world itself and creates a game-like progression system that the world then adapts around, or doesn't adapt around, in the case that it is not fully understood. Some of my favorite novels within this genre are those very stories. The stories where there isn't an external player starting off in the new world, but it is instead a native of the world discovering and growing in their own power. That is not to say there aren't some amazing stories where the protagonist does come from off-world, or in some interesting cases, the reverse, where a protagonist from a fantasy world ends up in our world. No, not at all. I just find that most authors tend to fall into the same traps when they use the same beginnings. Beyond that, within these worlds, the setup plays a continual companion to the characters in the story, but does not detract from the overall arcs, which are either, like many other stories, wholly unique or simply a retelling of the old hero's tale formula. So, let's get into a few of my favorites. Stories I happily recommend to people when the topic comes up. This list is ever growing, as I am still, even now, reading new stories that are published weekly by various up-and-coming authors, or long-standing authors who have had an audience from the beginning. Of these stories, as mentioned, my favorites begin with a twist on the traditional LitRPG starting. One story that does this really well is called Morningwood, Everybody Loves Large Chests. Written by Neven Iliev, a hilarious and risque pun that makes so much sense when you read past the third paragraph of the first chapter. Even the blurb is rather tongue-in-cheek, featuring great use of double entendres. In fact, let's read the blurb, in case you may be interested in this story, upon my recommendation. Large chests are said to encompass all manner of hopes and dreams. Men covet them, women envy them, but one fact holds true. Everyone wants to get their hands on some big ones. The same holds true for one intrepid adventurer, a strapping young lad by the name of Himmel. Armed with his grandfather's trusty longsword and the dream of being the strongest, he sets out on the journey of a lifetime. It is sure to be a long and dangerous road, fraught with danger. And it all starts with a simple test. Reach level 5 in the dungeon called the Newbie Zone, and earn the right to become a full-fledged adventurer. However, such things get hopelessly derailed when his adolescent mind beholds an exposed chest for the first time, a fateful meeting that would inevitably lead his life in a direction he never even dreamed of. Content warning: profanity, gore, sexual themes. I've read that book twice and listened to it in its audio format multiple times. It's hilariously funny. Another story I can highly recommend, written by the author Dakota Kraut, is Dungeonborn, a part of the Divine Dungeons series. The blurb for this story is as follows. For eons, conquering dungeons has been the most efficient way to become a strong adventurer. Although not everything is as straightforward as it seems, several questions have always plagued the mind of those that enter those mythical places of power. Why are there so many monsters? Where does the amazing weaponry and heavy gold coins come from? Why does the very air fill with life-giving energies? Cal has all the answers to these age-old questions for a very simple reason. He is a dungeon heart, a soul forced against his will into a magical stone. After several lonely years, Cal was able to regain sentience, allowing him to form new memories while slowly growing a dungeon around himself. With the help from a friend, Cal learned how to create monsters and traps, increasing his power and size quickly. When a threat to his existence rears its head, Cal decides that he will do anything to stay alive and become stronger. Unfortunately for treasure seekers, the fastest way for Cal to achieve his goal is to eat anyone that enters his depths. Yes, that's right. The main character is the dungeon itself. You join Cal as he learns the world from scratch, and it is a rather wonderful and enjoyable experience. Reading, or if you're listening to the audiobook, hearing him describe the world as he learns it. Finally, to not overload your reading, as I could honestly just talk about novels I've read in this genre for a solid 24 hours or more. There are so many. Many of which are translated from foreign languages by lovely individuals. Hell, actually, the first 28 chapters of one of these very stories exists on this channel, for the series called Praise the Orc by Lee Juming. My last suggestion in this same vein would be the series called Threadbare. The book, first one, is called Stuff and Nonsense. I've mentioned this before on my streams for those who enjoy reading. It is, without going into the blurb, a tale following the birth of sentience within a toy teddy bear doll, and his journey to learn the rules of the RPG-like world that he finds himself within. Some of the funniest and most engaging stories, I find, come from these individual twists of stereotypes that these amazing authors use. I do recall another such story about a D&D-based literary RPG, where a group is playing D&D, Dungeons & Dragons. I mean, it's called something else, I can't recall, but it's the same vein. Their rogue mistakenly feeds the party mushrooms that turn to poison when mixed with alcohol. He feeds them these without knowing that, due to a failed survival check. They then die when they're in a tavern, when they finally arrive and order alcohol. However, unlike you would think, the story doesn't finish there. No, the NPCs within the tavern are then forced into the spotlight, and due to the adventurers being on the king's orders, their quest from the campaign module, the NPCs must take their place for fear of being blamed for their deaths. The book, I believe, is called NPCs, and it's a fun little tale that makes you question what happens to the NPCs in the worlds where we reset or forget about them. Anyway, I've thoroughly chewed your ear off with my overly excited banter on books, the lifeblood of creativity. I'm such a nerd. Let's get to the synopsis of Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online is a Japanese light novel series written by Reki Kawahara. The series takes place in the near future and focuses on the protagonist Kazuto Kirito Kirigaya and Asuna Yuki, the ones that the costumes are modeled after. The plot is as follows. In 2022, a virtual reality massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or VRMMORPG for short, I don't know why they make these acronyms so large, called Sword Art Online, or SAO for short, is released. This is used in conjunction with the hardware called the Nerve Gear, a helmet that simulates and stimulates the user's 5 senses via their brain. The players that use these devices can experience and control their in-game characters within their minds, almost 100% verisimilitude. Both the game and the Nerve Gear was created by a person called Akihiko Kayaba. The game, Sword Art Online, goes through a closed beta that involves only 1,000 testers, of which one of those testers, named Kazuto, or Kirito as his in-game name, is the main protagonist of the series. After this closed beta test is all completed, on November the 6th of this year, 2022, 10,000 players log into SAO's mainframe cyberspace for the first time, only to discover, after a small time in the game, that they are completely unable to log out. In the main collection or gathering place of the first floor town, Kayaba appears in a deific appearance, massive robes and oversized, with strange warning arrows flashing all over the skies, and tells the players that they must beat all 100 floors of Aincrad, the steel castle which is the setting of SAO, if they wish to be free. Individuals within the game who suffer an in-game death, or who are forcibly ejected from the Nerve Gear in the real world, will suffer permanent death in the real world. Our hero, Kirito, with his previous gaming experience from the closed beta test, has a drive to protect himself and other beta testers from discrimination that is found amongst the 10,000 players, 1,000 of which are closed beta players, obviously. He isolates himself from the greater groups and plays the game completely solo, bearing the mantle of Beta, a portmanteau of beta tester and cheater combined. As the players progress through the game, Kirito eventually befriends a young girl named Asuna Yuki, one of the costumes that PB-chan has stolen in the background. They form a relationship with each other and later marry in-game. After many adventures and stumbling upon the identity of Kayaba, the creator of the game, who is playing as the leader of the guild that Asuna had joined, they confront and destroy him, freeing themselves and all of the other players from the game. Joyously, they look over Aincrad as everything comes to a close, happy in the knowledge that they have bested this trial. However, upon waking up in the real world, Kazuto discovers that 300 SAO players, including his love, Asuna, have remained trapped within their nerve gear. As he goes to the hospital to see Asuna, he meets Shozo Yuki, Asuna's father, who is asked by an associate of his, Nobuyuki Sugo, to make a decision, which Sugo later reveals to be his marriage proposal with Asuna. This angers Kazuto for obvious reasons. Several months later, he is informed by Agil, another SAO survivor, that a figure similar to Asuna was spotted on the World Tree, which is within another VR MMORPG cyberspace called Alfheim Online, or ALO for short. Being the strapping young hero that Kirito is, he obviously goes into this world to save the love of his life. But that, dear friends, has nothing to do with SAO, other than the fact it is built from the world seed that created the virtual cyberspace. And so there is where I will leave the synopsis retelling. Thank you again for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed my random rambling. Oh, and before I forget, if you're interested in listening to any of the stories that I've mentioned so far, you can get a free audiobook if you sign up using my Audible link in the description. I've wanted to do that for so long. Yes, I've signed up as an Audible affiliate. I don't have any of the fancy links like the other YouTubers have, but if any of the stories I've spoken about in this video are interesting to you, and you're a very busy person, much like I and everyone else in the world is, you might want to try the Audible format of it. I believe you get 1 or 2 free books, and don't have to pay anything, and can cancel your entry or your account, and keep the books forever, before the 30 days is up, when they would do the normal renewal. I use Audible quite a lot, so I have hundreds of books I can recommend. The sort of LitRPG book that I am currently listening to is called Fostering Faust. It's not for the light-hearted. It involves very dark plot points and some things that are untasteful for people to read or listen to. But I'm enjoying it so far. It's quite a good story, too. Anyway, without further ado, I shall let you have a wonderful morning, evening, or night, no matter where you are. Farewell for now, lovely people. I'll see you all this weekend, when PB-chan finally gets some sleep.